And what if I told you there's a young man who dropped out of college in the first semester, started a business in a garage with no money, no connections, no idea what he was doing, and today runs an organization worth $85 million per year with a personal net worth of $12 million? Sounds like clickbait? But it's the real story of Charlie Kirk. And the most interesting thing isn't how much he earned, it's how he built it. In this video, I'm going to show you the 7 financial lessons that transformed an 18-year-old college dropout into one of the most influential entrepreneurs of his generation. And you can bet these lessons work for anyone. By the way, before we start, how old are you? Comment below, because regardless of age, these strategies will change your perspective on money. Charlie Kirk was born in the suburbs of Chicago. At 18, in 2012, he founded Turning Point USA with no money, no connections, and no idea what he was doing. Most people in this situation would give up. He did the opposite. At the 2012 Republican Convention, Kirk met Foster Friess, a Republican donor, and managed to convince him to make a 5-figure donation to his organization. But here's the secret. It wasn't luck, it was strategy. Today, his organization generates $85 million per year with over 500,000 supporters, and he has accumulated a personal net worth of $12 million. How? By applying 7 financial principles that 99% of people ignore. And look, if you're already thinking, oh, but I'm not 18, or I don't know any millionaires, stick around until the end. Lesson number 5 will show you that those excuses don't matter. First lesson: short-term sacrifice for long-term wealth. Charlie Kirk worked 5 years without receiving a salary. Let that sink in. 5 years, 0 reais per month. While his college friends were spending on parties and thinking about internship salaries, he was building an asset. Think with me. Most people work for 30 years receiving a monthly salary and reach 60 with nothing. Kirk worked 5 years without a salary and created something that is now worth tens of millions of dollars. How to apply this in your life? You don't need to work for free, but you can use 1 to 2 hours a day on a side project that can grow. Agreed to earn less now in a company with growth potential, or invest in education and skills that multiply your income later. Warren Buffett said, "Someone is sitting in the shade today because someone planted a tree a long time ago." Kirk planted for 5 years. Today, he harvests millions. The price of discipline is always less than the pain of regret, as Naval Ravikant said. What project would you start today if you knew it would be worth millions in 5 years? Comment below, because sometimes writing it down is the first step. Second lesson: invest the majority, not what's left over. When Charlie finally started making a profit, you know what he did? He invested between 75 to 80% of everything he earned. Let me repeat, 75 to 80%. What does the average person do? Earns 5,000 reais, spends 4,800, invests 200. Kirk flipped the script. Earns 100,000 reais, invests 75 to 80,000 reais, lives on 20 to 25,000 reais. Let's do the math. Scenario A, average person. Salary 5,000 reais, investment of 500 reais, which is 10%. In 10 years, at 10% per year, you have 102,000 reais. Scenario B, Kirk strategy. Salary 5,000 reais, investment 3,750 reais, which is 75%. In 10 years, at 10% per year, you have 768,000 reais. The same person, the same salary. Difference? 666,000 reais. Robert Kiyosaki, author of Rich Dad Poor Dad, says, "The rich buy assets, the poor spend. The middle class buys liabilities thinking they are assets." Kirk bought assets, his company, investments, portfolio. While others were buying a new car, he was buying his future. How to start if you earn minimum wage? Simple. Month 1, invest 10%. You already survive on 90%, right? Month 2, increase to 15%. Month 6, target 25%. Year 2, target 40%. It doesn't have to be 75% right away,
but it needs to be much more than the meager 10% the average Brazilian does. Comment below, what percent do you invest today? Be honest, no judgment, just curious. Third lesson, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Charlie Kirk's portfolio is diversified like a Swiss watch. Private equity, mutual funds, index funds, real estate, and even emerging technologies. Why? Because he understands a brutal truth. Any investment can fail, but it's almost impossible for all of them to fail at the same time. In 2008, those who had everything in stocks lost up to 50%. Those who had real estate plus stocks plus bonds lost much less. Diversification is your insurance against crises. I'll give you the Brazilian version of the Kirk strategy. Beginner level, up to 1,000 reais per month invested, 40% Tesouro Direto Selic or IPCA+, 30% stocks with ETFs like BOVA11 or IVVB11, 20% FIIs or real estate funds, 10% emergency reserve in CDB with daily liquidity. Intermediate level, 1 to 5,000 reais per month, 25% fixed income with Tesouro and CDBs, 35% Brazilian stocks with a mix of ETFs and individual stocks, 20% FIIs, 15% international stocks with BDR ETFs, 5% crypto or alternatives, but only if you understand it. Advanced level, 5,000 reais or more per month, 20% fixed income, 30% Brazilian stocks, 20% international stocks, 15% FIIs, 10% private equity or startups, 5% alternative assets. Ray Dalio, manager of the world's largest hedge fund, said, "He who lives on only one source of income is one disaster away from poverty." Luiz Barsi, Brazil's largest individual investor, said, "Diversification is having several chickens laying eggs. If one dies, the others continue." Comment below, in how many different types of investment are you today? 1, 3, 10? Let's see who's most diversified. Fourth lesson, the size of the beginning doesn't matter. The vision matters. Charlie Kirk admitted he had no money, no connections, and no idea what he was doing in 2012. 50,000 initial dollars. That's less than many Brazilians have in saved FGTS. But he didn't think small. He envisioned a national organization, and he built it step by step. Jeff Bezos started Amazon in a garage. Today, it's worth $1.7 trillion. Mark Zuckerberg started Facebook in a dorm room. Today, it's worth $1 trillion. Charlie Kirk started in a garage in Chicago. Today, it grosses $85 million per year. The pattern? Start small, plus big vision, plus consistent execution. You today with 500 reais can open a brokerage account for free, buy one share of BOVA11 ETF for about 100 reais, buy one share of FII for about 100 reais, and save 270 reais. In 10 years, with 500 reais per month at 10% per year, you have 102,000 reais. In 20 years, 379,000. In 30 years, 1.1 million. Started with 500 bucks, ended up a millionaire. Tony Robbins said, most people overestimate what they can do in 1 year and underestimate what they can do in 10 years. Pause the video and comment, how much are you going to start investing this month? It doesn't matter if it's 50 reais or 5,000 reais. The important thing is to start. Comment below. Fifth lesson, all profit goes back into growth. In the early years, Charlie Kirk reinvested everything in the organization. Zero profit distribution, zero luxury purchases. Everything back to growing. This is called compound interest applied to business, and it's the most powerful tool in the financial universe. Imagine two scenarios. Entrepreneur A has a profit in year 1 of 100,000 reais, takes out 50,000, reinvests 50,000. Linear growth. Entrepreneur B, Kirk strategy, has a profit in year 1 of 100,000 reais, takes out 0, reinvests 100,000 reais, exponential growth.
In 5 years, Entrepreneur A has 250,000 accumulated. Entrepreneur B has 1.2 million accumulated. The difference? Patience and long-term vision. But I don't have a company. You can reinvest your dividends and profits. Instead of withdrawing dividends from stocks, automatically reinvest. Instead of spending treasury yield, reinvest. Instead of spending that bonus, reinvest 80%. Albert Einstein supposedly said, "Compound interest is the most powerful force in the universe." Warren Buffett, at 95 with over 100 billion, said 99% of my wealth was created after age 50. The secret? Compound interest and time. Do you reinvest your profits or spend them? Comment, "I reinvest" if you already do this, or "I will start" if you were going to start now. Sixth lesson. Boring investments work. Sexy investments fail. Charlie Kirk doesn't go looking for the next Bitcoin or the stock that will go up 1,000 times. He invests in boring things: index funds, Dow Jones, established private equity, real estate. Why? Because boring is predictable, and predictable is safe. Bitcoin over the last 3 years, plus 150%, minus 60%, plus 80%, minus 40%. Chaos. S&P 500 over the last 3 years, plus 12%, plus 8%, plus 15%. Consistency. Who gets truly rich? Those who have consistency for 30 years, not those who get one crazy bet right. Boring investments that work. Tesoro Select yields 100% of the CDI with no risk. Bovie 11 tracks the largest companies in Brazil. IVVB 11 tracks the 500 largest companies in the U.S. Consolidated FII make you receive rent every month. Large bank CDBs are predictable and safe. Sexy investments that fail. Random shitcoins. Day trading without experience. Promising stocks no one knows about. Disguised pyramid schemes. Benjamin Graham, Warren Buffett's mentor, said, "The best investment is the one you can sleep peacefully at night with." Morgan Housel, author of The Psychology of Money, said, "Getting rich is about getting good returns and not doing anything stupid." Sincerity. Do you invest more in boring and safe things or in sexy and risky things? Comment below without shame. And seventh lesson. The rich buy assets. The poor buy liabilities. Charlie Kirk didn't buy a Ferrari. He bought stocks, real estate, funds, equity in companies, things that generate income. What is an asset? Puts money in your pocket. Stocks that pay dividends, FIIs that pay rent, rented real estate, businesses that generate profit, courses and books that increase your income. What is a liability? Takes money out of your pocket. Car with IPVA, gas, insurance, and maintenance. Owner-occupied house financed with absurd interest. Designer clothes that lose value. Electronics that depreciate 50% in 1 year. Powerful practical example. Scenario. You have 50,000 reais. Poor decision. Buys a car for 50,000 reais. Year 1, it's worth 40,000 reais. Lost 10,000. Year 5, it's worth 25,000 reais. Lost 25,000. Total costs with IPVA and insurance total 15,000 reais. Result, minus 40,000. Rich decision. Charlie Kirk invests 50,000 reais in FIIs that yield 8% per year in dividends. Year 1 receives 4,000 plus appreciation. Year 5 has 73,000 plus received 20,000 in dividends. Result, plus 43,000. Difference between the two decisions, 83,000 in 5 years. This is the difference between rich and poor. It's not how much they earn, it's where they put their money. Robert Kiyosaki said, "The rich buy assets, the poor spend. The middle class buys liabilities, thinking they are assets." Grant Cardone said, "The average person works to pay bills. The rich work to buy assets that pay the bills." Last question. What was the last asset you bought? And what was the last liability? Comment both and compare. Recapping the 7 financial lessons of Charlie Kirk. First, short-term sacrifice equals long-term wealth. Second, invest the majority, 75 to 80%,
not what's left over. Third, diversify as if your life depended on it. Fourth, start small but think big. Fifth, reinvest everything in the early years. Sixth, boring and consistent is better than sexy and risky. Seventh, buy assets, not liabilities. Charlie Kirk went from 0 to 12 million by applying this. It wasn't luck, it wasn't privilege, it was strategy. And here's the truth no one tells you. You don't need to be a genius. You don't need to be born rich. You don't need to have studied at Harvard. You only need 3 things: discipline to invest a lot, patience to let it grow, and consistency to do it for years. So here's my challenge to you. Take one of these 7 lessons and apply it this week, just one, and come back here in 7 days and comment which one it was and what changed. Because knowledge without action is just entertainment. And you didn't come here to be entertained. You came here to change. Comment now, which of the 7 lessons impacted you the most? And if this video was worth your time, you know what to do. Leave that like, subscribe to the channel, and share with that friend who needs to hear this. See you in the next video. And remember, no matter your age, your salary, or your situation, the best time to start was 10 years ago. The second best time is now. Cheers!